Let me start by just saying a few words about my organization. Global Exchange is a nonprofit based down in San Francisco. And our basic mandate is to educate the American people about what's really going on in the world. We are the most powerful country ever. We are the most powerful empire ever in the history of the world. The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the British Empire, the Dutch Empire, the Portuguese Empire. None had the political and economic and military influence on a planetary basis that the United States has had in the past 50 or 60 years. We are 4% of the world's population, consuming 25% of the world's resources. You would expect that a country that is so globally powerful would have citizens who are very knowledgeable about world affairs. Irony is not dead, despite the efforts of the Bush administration. If you went out on the street with a blank map of the world with just the boundaries and no names of countries, what percentage of the American people could find Iraq on a map? 2%? 5%? Anybody willing to say 50%? I don't think so. Well, that's scary, right? I think you should have a rule that if you're going to kill 100,000 people in a country and invade them and drop bombs and napalm and cluster bombs and all this stuff in order to get their oil, because after all, if Iraq's major export were broccoli, I don't think we'd have troops there, you know, it's about the oil. They were originally, the Pentagon was planning on calling the invasion of Iraq Operation Iraqi Liberation, OIL. And then they realized, oh, no, that probably is not a good idea. So at least they know how to spell, you know, that's good. Of course, we have a president that doesn't read books. I mean, that's a problem. I think there should be a requirement if you're going to be president, you have to read books, maybe, I don't know. Is that asking too much? So what we're trying to do is to educate the American people as to what is really going on in the world. And we do that in a variety of ways. We take them out on reality tours, where it's like reverse Club Med ideology, get off the beach, meet real people, see the development projects that are going on, the literacy campaigns, the women's organizations, the peasant groups, the bottom-up grassroots organizations that are creating the foundation layer of a future global economy that will be democratic, that will be green, where there won't be starving children, there won't be clear-cut forests, there won't be endangered species. And you got to believe that's going to happen. The only question is, how long is it going to take us? You can view the human race as a species at this point in our development exiting adolescence and entering adulthood, right? Where you realize, oh, there's not somebody that's going to come and clean up the beer bottles after the party last night. We have to do that ourselves. You know, we say throw it away. There's no away. Where's the away? You know, we're starting to realize that we have to make major changes in the way we live. We cannot continue to be 4% of the world's population consuming 25% of the world's resources and think the rest of the world is not going to get pissed off at us, right? Especially if we go blowing up mosques. Hey, that's a really smart strategy, you know? And I think actually that strategy may be conscious. We on the left criticize the Bush administration saying, you idiots, by killing all these people in Iraq and Afghanistan and bombing mosques, you're recruiting people to Al-Qaeda. You're creating more recruits to the terrorists. So you think Bush and Cheney don't know that? You think they're that stupid that they don't know that? I think they know that. But think, for 50 or 60 years, the way they kept my generation scared and stupid was communism. Ooh, Russia, the communists, the Soviet Union, they're going to take over. Oh yeah, they're so globally powerful that they collapsed of their own dead, undemocratic weight. You know, they're feeding their people sawdust. They're terrible, but they're going to take over the world. What? How does that really? How does that work? So the Soviet Union collapses, communism collapses in 1989, 1990. Now what is your scare factor for the American people? What is it that's going to keep the American people scared and stupid and not be questioning why we have 300 major military bases around the world and spend almost $500 billion on a military apparatus that is protecting us? Like, who's going to invade us? Mexico? Canada? Oh, those Canadians. They look and sound like us, you know. You got to watch out. They got real potent marijuana up there, you know. They've been smoking that weed. You know, you can't trust those weed smokers. Half this room just empties out psychologically, right? Bye-bye. So, you know, people of my generation say, don't do drugs. Your generation says, we can't do drugs. You guys did them all. There's none left, you know? What are you talking about? So we do reality tours where we take people out. Is there a way to turn this on? High tech. Here we go. Here's the world, okay? If you forget everything else I say, please remember this diagram. If you want to explain globalization to people, you want to explain what's going on in the world, you draw triangles on a napkin. You draw little triangles up at the top, right? These triangles up at the top are the ruling elites of the particular country. You could do an analysis. I did a 700-page doctoral dissertation on U.S. relations with South Africa, and I dissected the history of the relations between the U.S. ruling elite, the corporate elite, the political leaders, and the military leaders, and their counterparts in South Africa. And when you took apart the history of that, you saw why the United States supported apartheid in South Africa, even though it was denounced worldwide as the most racist system on the face of the earth, was because these people up here who ran our country sat on the boards of corporations that were doing big deals in South Africa. Ford and General Motors and Chase Manhattan were in South Africa investing over 100 years ago and making big profits because the system of apartheid held down the price of labor. The workers couldn't live where they wanted to, they couldn't marry who they wanted to, they didn't have citizenship rights, they couldn't vote, etc. So you had a contradiction between policy as preached. The U.S. government had to say to the American people, oh, we're against apartheid, because you got a civil rights movement coming up in the 50s and 60s, African Americans asserting their legal and political rights for full citizenship. You had African countries getting their independence from the colonial rulers, taking seats in the UN and other international bodies. Oh, we can't say we like apartheid. We abhor apartheid, but we need the minerals, so we can't pressure them. Nelson Mandela is a communist, and we don't want communists to come to power. The Cape Sea route around South Africa is a very important sea lanes, and some radical government in South Africa might shut off those sea lanes, and we wouldn't. It was all lies. And that's what my dissertation showed. I had a dissertation advisor who would force us to reduce our thesis to 100 words, 70 words, 50 words, 30 words, 20 words. He got me down to a 2-word sentence. It was about U.S. policy. And the sentence was, they lie. That was my dissertation. I proved that they lie. The question is, why do they lie? It's not a personality flaw like they're individually liars. It's that the structural relationship between the U.S. elites and the South African elites required them to lie. They couldn't come to the American people and say, look, this apartheid system really sucks, but we're going to support that government because we're making a lot of money off of it. Their military is cooperating with us against communism. The companies that we run get the minerals real cheap because we don't pay the workers. The American people are not going to buy that. If the Bush administration had come to the American people and said, hey, we're going to invade this country, Iraq, and kill 100,000 people because it's got the second largest oil reserves in the world, is that cool? The American people would have said, are you crazy? We can't do that. It's going to make 1.2 billion people in the world hate us. Blowing up mosques? If somebody came to this country and blew up our churches, would we like them? No, we'd have a lot of us who would want to go to their country and blow up things, right? I grew up with guys like that, you know, the gun rack in the back of a pickup truck and all that kind of stuff. You know, the same guys that are driving around with pickup trucks with gun racks with American flags on their antennas would be our insurgents if we were invaded, right? Put the shoes of the other guy on your feet, walk a mile in the other person's shoes, you know. So here's the way you explain it to people. When people bring up the term globalization, oh, and by the way, if I could pass around, this is a sign-up sheet for Global Exchange if you want to get on our very judiciously used email list. We don't spam, we hate spam. If you guys could pass these around, I'd appreciate it. So you get plugged into, that's it, be an activist, step forward. Yeah, good. Yeah, see, she's a revolutionary, you can tell the way she jumped up. If you take the word revolutionary and you take the first 5 letters, and you turn them backwards, it spells lover. And that's got to mean something, right? I mean, that's That's a powerful concept there. So when somebody brings up the term globalization, you say, well, which globalization do you mean? You draw the little picture here and you say, do you mean elite globalization? And there's plenty of books, including mine now, that lay this out. You know, the World Bank, IMF officials go to country X. We have, how many people here were born in another country other than the U.S.? How many people had parents born in another country? Okay, so proving what's the most diverse country in the world? United States of America. It's the most diverse country in the world. Has more different people from more different backgrounds than any single nation on the face of the earth. For us to have a racist foreign policy is really stupid, okay? Of all countries in the world, we should have the hippest, most sensitive, most anti-racist foreign policy. Travel around the world, as we do, and just talk to people and say, hey, what do you think about U.S. foreign policy? And see what you get. Conservative newspapers in industrial countries in Europe are trashing us. They're laughing at us. They're making fun of us. We're a laughing stock for the stupidity of our relations. An embargo against little Cuba, 11 million people the size of Los Angeles County, and we're trying to strangle them because they don't want to run their economy the way we run ours. What? What? My father, I confess, my prejudice is I was raised by a simple Irish peasant who was functionally illiterate, but he was a really good guy. And he taught me you're supposed to love everybody. This was a Catholic Jesus thing, you know, unconditional love, like Dr. King and Gandhi taught. Unconditional love, but he said there's one thing you can hate. And what you can hate is injustice. When you see a bully picking on somebody weaker than them, you have to intervene in that situation. I started traveling around the world in my late teens, early 20s, and it dawned on me, we're the bully. Yeah, we're the bully. Vietnam, we killed millions of people in Vietnam. Did Vietnam have a navy that could attack us? No. Did they have an air force that could attack us? No. Were they any possible threat to us? No. We killed millions of people in that country. To this day, Vietnam has one of the highest deformed baby rates in the world because of all the dioxin and Agent Orange and toxins that our military dropped on those people. Why would we do that? Oh, because they wanted to be communist. So let them. They want to be Buddhist, they want to be communist, they want to be capitalist, whatever. As long as they don't hurt us, what the hell's the big deal? Right? But a lot of my buddies went and fought and died or came back heroin addicts with their legs blown off from Vietnam because they were so stupid that a buddy of mine was in a firefight in Vietnam and took a round sideways and it ripped his stomach open. He was holding his own intestines and he thought he was going to die. And at that moment, he realized, I don't even know what communism is. It shouldn't take that near-death experience to wake up to how we're being manipulated by people who do not have our best interests at stake. These are people who don't ride the bus. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm not saying Bush is a bad person. I'm not saying somebody who works for Exxon, Texaco, whatever is bad. That's not what it is. I'm not making an instrumental critique. I would let my daughters marry a rich guy. That's, you know, I have friends that are rich guys that they donate money to my organization. You know, that's not, I'm making a structural critique. I'm saying if that you have people running the bus system who never ride the bus, you will have a bad bus system. If you have people running the healthcare system who they have healthcare insurance, thank you very much, you will have a bad healthcare system and 40 million people without healthcare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Go to Washington and see the lifestyle of the members of Congress. They have subsidized cafeterias, subsidized parking, subsidized daycare, healthcare, mailing privileges, all this. They have socialism and we have capitalism, you know. It's like, I'd like to have a job like that. When I lived in Washington, I always ate lunch in the Supreme Court cafeteria because it was really great food, cheap, because the taxpayers, the suckers are paying for it, right? If you disconnect the people making the rules from the impact of the rules, you will get bad policy. It's called a feedback loop, and in nature, it's full of feedback loops. Okay, so the kind of globalization that gets promoted by this transnational elite alliance boils down to this. The World Bank, IMF, World Trade Organization, U.S. government, transnational corporations, these elites, well-paid, chauffeur-driven, first-class air travel, they go to the leaders of this country and they say, look, we want to do a deal where we're going to lend you a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's debt. It's going to be paid back with interest. And we want two things. We want to get access to your labor, the workers of your country, at low wages, thank you very much, no trade unions. We'll give you guns if they protest, you can shoot them. You know, we'll protect you in the UN when the condemnation vote comes up. We'll veto it because we're on the Security Council. We have veto power. And we want nature. You got trees, we want to cut them down. You got minerals, we want to take them out of the ground quickly and cheaply and pollute your environment in the process because it's cheaper and more profitable that way. You got coastline, we want to fish the hell out of it. And you have a forestry crisis, a minerals crisis, you know, soil depletion crisis, etc. Every biological system on the face of the earth is in a state of collapse. If just China lives according to our standard of living, you can kiss the world's ass goodbye. Right? If everybody in the world lived at the U.S. standard of resource consumption, you would need 3.5 planet Earths. We're not going to get that, okay? Newsflash. We've got one that we were entrusted with, and it's got this tiny little skin around it called our biosphere, which is thinner in relation to the Earth than the skin of an apple is to an apple, and we are fouling it. That's why asthma rates are going up. We have an obesity crisis in rich countries like the United States, and we have a child dying from the effects of hunger every 3 seconds. There's abundant food in the world. There's no shortage. These people are saying, well, biotechnology, we can grow more food. We don't need to grow any more food. If you got a 10% reduction of meat consumption in the U.S. and use that grain to feed people instead of animals, you could wipe out hunger in the world. That's how small. So those of you who are vegetarians or vegans, yeah, right on, you know. Some people are a little bit ahead of the herd, you know, helping try and direct the herd in a different direction, a more sustainable direction. So what has this produced? This transnational alliance of elites is based on a set of values that, if I can get this thing to turn, I will put it up here for you. This old paradigm has dominated the planet. And that's our website, by the way, globalexchange.org. You can see all our programs. The old paradigm that is now losing strength and is in decline because people are waking up, reading books, going to Google, all that kind of stuff, is a combination of money values. I mean, think of Columbus, Pizarro, Cortez, the conquistadores. What were they looking for? Gold and silver, right? It was money. The mechanism was violence, mounting cannons on sailing ships. Read Cipolla, Guns, Sails, and Empires. He lays out the history of the naval technology of mounting cannons on sailing ships that allowed a small group out of northwestern Europe to conquer the planet, right, and create the colonial empires. Those of you who are from Africa, Asia, Latin America, my father was from Ireland. The first third world was Eastern Europe and Ireland. The Irish are just as white as the British. Okay? Racism does not require a skin color difference. It requires my group having enough power to impose on your group a definition of who you will be and what your language will be and how your land will be distributed and what your economy will be like and what your workers get paid. And you can extrapolate that to male-female relationships, any kind of power up, power down relationships. The justifying mechanism was God is on our side. You can find documents in the original Spanish explorers, conquerors, saying we are bringing these savages to Christ as we kill them. I'd love to hear what Jesus would have to say about that. Mr. Nonviolence, those of you, how many people here were raised some contact with the New Testament? Oh, that's great. Okay, so Jesus only got violent one time. What profession did he target? Was it soldiers? No. Was it Roman emperors? No, it was bankers. Who runs the world right now? The bankers. What did he get pissed off at them for? And he knocked their stuff on the floor and said, "Get out of God's house. You are defiling God's house." What is the planet Earth? God's house. Who's the main institutions that are defiling God's house? It's the people that have put the word God on our money. You know, on our money it says, "In God we trust." There's people in other cultures that freak out when they see that. You got the word of the Creator on your money, man. You're not supposed to do that. It's disgusting. We don't even think about it, right? So if Jesus, who, you know, whether you believe in all this Christian fundamentalism or any of that kind of stuff, you got to figure this guy is pretty cool, right? If he mobilizes thousands of people just by talking to them and trying to inculcate a loving spirituality, unconditional love. Dr. Martin Luther King said, what will win in the end is unarmed truth and unconditional love. Unarmed truth and unconditional love. And that's all the motto you need. You can put that over every door. Unarmed truth and unconditional love. What a great map for leading us forward toward a loving world where we take care of everybody. Right? Nobody left out of the boat. This package is in decline. And there are people in many different countries who still subscribe to this, who are going to hang on and fight tooth and claw to keep this going. Bin Laden, Bush. You know, it's not by nation, it's not by religion. It's by this package. God is on our side. We have God's 800 number. We know what God thinks. What? What the hell kind of God are you talking about that you think, you know, Pat Robertson, oh, the hurricane in New Orleans was sent by God. Or those people in Pennsylvania who voted the creationists off their school board, oh, they're going to get punished. You know, come on. You know, and there's millions of people that watch that. It's like wrestling, you know. There's still some people that think wrestling is real. You know, it's like, come on. Wake up, folks. It's testosterone poisoning to a certain extent, you know. So what's the new paradigm that is replacing it, that is coming up from the grassroots? The new paradigm that is this new system is life values, not money values. Life values have to dominate money values. Life should dominate commerce. Society should dominate the economy, not the economy dominating society. Nonviolence rather than violence. I can only convince you of my position using facts and logic, not force. I can't hurt you as a way to bring you over to my way of thinking. That's illegitimate. And the third piece is God, and use the broadest definition. If you think God is nature, the life force of the universe, a white guy on a cloud with a robe and a beard, whatever your God is, God does not take sides in intra-species conflicts. Intra-species, within the species. Black ants and red ants are fighting. Is the supreme being going to take sides in that? Gray wolves and black wolves are fighting. The creator of all things, visible and invisible, is going to take sides in that intra-species conflict. What the hell kind of a conceptualization, puny conceptualization of the supreme being are you carrying around in your head and heart? And it's just as stupid for Islamic fundamentalists, Christian fundamentalists, Hindu fundamentalists, Jewish fundamentalists, whoever the fundamentalists are, they've taken the fun out of fundamentalism, to think that the supreme being is going to take their side and we'll kill people who don't agree with us. Well, you're crazy. And you'll probably end up in jail, hopefully, or at least manacled in some way, whether you're doing it as a car bomb, or a suicide bomb, or an F-16, or a cluster bomb, or I don't care what your technology is. If you're killing innocent people, I mean, it's one thing if somebody breaks into my house and I throw him out a window and say to the police, hey, he came running at me and I stepped aside and he went out the window. That's a different thing. He invaded my space. He was threatening my family. I'm defending my family. When you invade someone else's territory and blow up buildings and kill people, I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable anymore, because the human race has gotten to a point of sophistication where we have things like the Geneva Accords that say you have to treat your prisoners humanely. You can't torture them. That is international law. We have multilateral environmental agreements that say you can't produce certain noxious materials into our air, the shared atmosphere that we all breathe. And those are effective, right? The reason the ozone layer is now being fixed a little bit is because the Montreal protocols are reducing the production of those hydrofluorocarbons and others that destroy the ozone layer. These things work. There's human rights accords. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 says, Article 23 says, every human being has a right, not a privilege, a right to a job. Jobs aren't a privilege. Oh, please, company, come and build a factory and give us some jobs. We'll give you 10 years of no taxes. No, jobs are a human right. We hold these truths to be self-evident, it says in the Declaration of Independence, that all people are created equal and they are endowed by the Creator with inalienable rights. An inalienable right means it can't be taken away from you and you can't give it up. People who say, oh, I'll trade some of my freedom for more security. No, you can't give up natural rights. They are as part of you as your skin and blood and bones. That was the revolutionary principle that this country was founded on. That sovereignty, ultimate political power, ultimate political authority does not reside in government. Government is a derivative institution. It derives its authority from the informed consent of we, the people. That's why the Constitution of the United States, our basic law, which is now under attack and being run through a shredder, be scared, be very scared, starts with the words, we the people. So my comrades in the NRA who want to protect our right to arm bears or bear arms, whichever, they say the Second Amendment, we've got to protect the Second Amendment to the Constitution, the right to bear arms. I agree. But I think the First and the Third and the Fourth and the Fifth and the Sixth and the others are important too. We've got to protect those as well. Only we can destroy the Constitution. Al-Qaeda, foreign terrorists, they cannot destroy the Constitution. Only we can do that. So this new paradigm is coming up from the grassroots. Remind you of my little diagram, right, of the triangles. So if the elite globalization is this alliance and institutional connection, and you could unpack all these lines of connection, down here we have a whole new economy coming up from the grassroots. It believes in democracy. It believes in equal empowerment of women. Could the women do worse than us guys have done screwing up the planet? I mean, come on. Let's be frank about this, guys. Why is it, do you think, a peacock has all those beautiful feathers and a peahen, the female, is just a plain brown bird that blends into the background? Eh? My two daughters can identify the male and female in most species. The bird that's all brightly colored, that's the male. The one that's real plain, that's the female. It's why women get into cosmetics and us guys. You know, we don't have to do it. We know we're more attractive, right? No, but think. I'm joking. I don't want to blow the point here. I don't want to step on the punchline. Think, why does nature do that? Nature makes the male more visually attractive, not pretty, able to attract visual attention. So when the predator comes, it will eat the male and not the female. Duh. Because which gender is more vital for the preservation of the species? It's not the male. The male's needed for what, a minute or two? Okay, you're done. Get out of here. You know? And unfortunately, as you ladies know, it sometimes boils down to that. He left first thing in the morning. What the hell was that about? You know, the escape routine. Oh, I got a meeting. I got to go. What was your name again? Nature isn't stupid, okay? Nature's beta phase, nature's testing phase is billions and billions of years. All the mistakes and all, those got weeded out a long time ago, the Darwin Awards, right? They almost always go to males who blew themselves up with some cool experiment, right? This movement down here believes in equality. It believes in democracy, real democracy. It believes in saving the environment. It believes that life is sacred and that commerce, money, is a tool. It's not a religion, it's not a faith, it's not spiritual, it's not the meaning of life. It is a thing. It is an activity that we do, like sport or religion. but it's not the meaning of life, okay? Life and the connectedness of all living things is what matters. So look at the fair trade movement. Fair trade movement, you can go and you can buy coffee that has on it fair trade certified, and pardon my lack of graphic skills, and it has a stick figure carrying scales of justice. If you buy coffee beans or chocolate or tea or other commodities that have that fair trade certified label on it, and you can learn more about it by going to the Global Exchange website, and there's also a website, transfairusa.org, and you will see that if you buy fair trade certified coffee, it's costing you about an extra penny or two per cup, an amount of money you wouldn't pick up off the sidewalk. It's literally insignificant to you. But for these farmers that are growing the coffee beans, it's about a 300% to 400%. It's about a 300% to 400% increase in their income, because groups like Global Exchange and Transfer USA, there's a whole international network now of these nonprofit organizations that have created this system over the past 30, 40 years. We've set up a way to remove the marketplace from the relationship and create a direct relationship between you, the consumers, and the producers. We have a version of that here in the United States called community-supported agriculture. Community-supported agriculture, CSA, which there are people in the room who know about this, they can tell you about it in more detail. CSA works on a principle of, let's get these few dozen families directly connected to the farmer, and then that way we remove the marketplace. The farmer will know harvest price at planting time. We get a direct connection to the farm. We can take our kids out to the farm and see where the food comes from. We know it's being grown organically. It's win-win. Everybody all around wins, right? So you now have a whole new economy coming up from the grassroots, where we have developed our skill set around building these alternative institutions and uniting people at the majority level, but we've also increased our skill set at dividing the elite alliances transnationally, right? When we, in 1999, I say we, Global Exchange and a lot of other organizations, we shut down the World Trade Organization here in Seattle by putting 50,000 people out in the street. And the stuff about the window breakings, that was less than 1% of the crowd. 99.9% of the crowd was totally nonviolent. We didn't break a damn thing. In fact, some of us were standing in front of those windows saying, don't break the windows. Nike's got insurance for that windows. You might hurt the workers with glass. And the customers, they're not the enemy. It's the system we're trying to change. It's not individuals we have a beef with. You're not going to accomplish anything except make us all look bad by breaking stuff. We're not about breaking stuff. We're about building stuff. So here's my analogy. This system of transnational elite alliances, where the minority, millionaires, right? And again, no offense against millionaires. I love millionaires. I try to be friends with them when I'm doing fundraising. But this structure where 1 or 2% of the world's population gets to make all the policy and decide how the economy will be structured, it is dying. It is going down, okay? It's the Titanic. The Titanic has already struck the iceberg and it is sinking. So we have two choices in terms of our activism. We can either run around the decks of the Titanic going, this boat sucks, man, I protest, right? And I'm into protest. I participate in protests and all. But that's a narrative about them. It's us focused on them, them, them. What's the narrative about us? The narrative about us is, instead of running around the decks of the Titanic saying, this boat sucks, we build an alternative boat. Solar-powered, wind-powered, recycled materials, organic food, party on deck, scantily clad people with drinks in their hand, dancing to cool music, and we pull up alongside the Titanic, and people will jump willingly to our new boat. And we won't have to say a word about your boat sucks, which is a negative message. You're saying, you're so stupid, you're on the Titanic. No. Just pull up alongside. So we do an event called the Green Festival. The website is greenfestivals.org. If you go to it, you will see what it's all about. And what we do is we bring together in a weekend 450 green economy companies, 100 speakers, 12 vegetarian restaurants, all organic, organic beer and wine, all this technology and speakers and training sessions in how to compost and buy organic and support the local green economy, et cetera, et cetera. And we get 30,000 people come through the door. Toyota pays us $21,000 to have a couple Prius vehicles there because that's their energy-saving technology that they want to get promoted. And we want to pat them on the head and say, that's good. Now make all your cars like the Prius, which they're doing. They made a commitment that by 2012, they're going to convert all their drivetrains to the alternative synergy drive technology, which we'll see if they do it or not, but that's a good pledge. We want to encourage Ford and General Motors, which are going bankrupt. You know, you could have converted to, Ford has synergy technology now, synergy drive. They lease it from Toyota because they didn't invest the money to develop their own technology around it. So what we are confronted with is the opportunity to either, I'm going to just try and get a good job and make enough money that I can have a house and raise my kids, and I'm going to be in this bubble, and I'm not going to concern myself with all this global chaos that's going on. No, you can't. I'm sorry. You know, there were people in New Orleans who thought they could do that, and their city got wiped out. There were people, you know, in lots of parts of the world who thought they were safe, and they got bombs dropped on them, or somebody blew themselves up. You can't live in a cocoon, and it's not good for you. We now know from biochemistry that if I do an act of kindness toward this gentleman here, his serotonin levels go up, my serotonin levels go up, and anyone who observes that act of kindness, their serotonin levels go up. It's one of those chemicals like DHEA, immunoglobulin B, these different chemicals that the best pharmacy in the world, your own body, produces to make you healthy, to strengthen your immune system. The Plains Indians who lived off the buffalo, we know that when they killed the buffalo, they would take all the meat, the skin was their clothing and their tents, and the sinews were their bows and all that stuff. And when they got done, they would take the skull of the buffalo and put it in the soil facing east so the buffalo would see the sunrise in the morning. Some of you would say, it's mumbo jumbo. It's not mumbo jumbo. It's science. Science and spirituality together. Because it turns out when that Native American did that act of connectedness with nature, it was raising the serotonin levels in their own body and making them more healthy and strengthening their immune system and giving them longer life. And it was putting calcium and other minerals back into the soil, which helped the grass grow, which helped the buffalo eat, which helped them eat. And that cycle of life was understood, not in an abstract textbook way, but in a lived, direct experience way. So their science and their spirituality, I'm not saying they didn't have problems, they made mistakes, yes, but their science and their spirituality were unified. We now live in a world where it is possible for our spirituality to totally embrace science. The spirituality of this grassroots people's globalization movement has no problem with science. It loves science because that science is leading us toward a green economy. Wind energy is now price competitive with natural gas, right, for producing electricity, right? Organic food costs more. Why? Because it's more valuable. It's better. So your choice in terms of your career is, and my advice would be, go for the local green economy. Let that be your mantra. The problem with the current global economy is it's transnational corporations that are not rooted in place and they're not green. The alternative to that is the local green economy. That's where the jobs of the future are going to be. So with that, let me conclude. Thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully we have some questions. Thank you.